Welcome to Growing Up Boomer. I'm your host, Padre, with my co-host, Professor. And this podcast is dedicated to the life and times of the baby boomer generation. The show is loosely scripted, and sometimes we'll go down rabbit holes, and where it leads us to, one will never know. This podcast can be informative, funny, and sometimes irreverent. But most of all, we hope you find it entertaining. Hi, I'm your host, Padre, and welcome to Growing Up Boomer. Now, today's subject is going to be things that you could buy for under $1 in 1956. But before we do that, I am a person that loves quotes. Okay, I love quotes, and there's a book in which has different quotes, and I'd like to have you. These are the most, shall we say, notable quotes over the centuries. The first one is Winston Churchill, which he always has, and him and Lady Astor always had issues. I believe there was one quote where she said, "Mr. Churchill, you are drunk." And he said, "Madam, you are ugly, but in the morning I shall be sober." Well, one time he told him, "If I were your wife, I'd poison your tea." And of course, when Churchill shot back, "If I was your husband, I would drink it." Oscar Wilde used to say, "Some cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go." Groucho Marx, which he was always good for a couple of lines there. "I never forget a face, but in your case, I'll make an exception." Mae West, "Her mother should have thrown him away and kept the stork." Abraham Lincoln, and this one I like. Okay, I've used this one quite a few. It says when he was accused during a debate about being a two-faced man, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I leave it to you. If I were a two-faced man, would I have picked this face?" Okay. Oh, and then Betty Davis about Joan Crawford. "She has slept with every male star in MGM except Lassie the dog." And one more, Zsa Zsa Gabor. Okay. She says, "I am a marvelous housekeeper. Every time I leave a man, I keep his house." Okay. Well, okay, let's get into the podcast very quickly. Now, again, the thing about this podcast is that when I start giving you the prices, we're going to do things a little bit differently. When I start giving you the prices, they sound like they're practically free. Okay. But what I'm going to do as well is adjust it to today's money. Okay. So when you hear it, for instance, you have to remember that back in 1956, okay, a house sold for $9,550. The average income was $4,454 a year. Now, unless you made minimum wage, which was $1, then you were at $2,080 a year. So you can see it's kind of like for every dollar in 1956 is worth about $11.92 in 2026. But let's go over a few of these items that you could buy for under $1 back then. And then I will give you, and this will be for 2025 because of course 2026 we've just started. So in 1956, the average price for a dozen eggs was 60 cents. Now, if you adjust it for 2025 inflation, $7.22. So basically, it's about the same, unless you can get them on sale. Okay, now and then they'll come up on sale for like $2.97 or something like that, man. And I get like 2,000 eggs, and I start making my quiches. Okay, but yeah. So that's about what they're going for today. Now, scoop of ice cream, 5 to 20 cents. Okay, now get this. Adjusted for 2025 inflation, that's 60 cents to $2.41. which is about right at 2.41 for a scoop of ice cream these days. 60 cents, you know, it could be at Walgreens or whatever, okay, or Rite Aid. Remember, they have their little ice cream counter. It might have movie tickets were 45 cents back in the 1956. 2025 for inflation rate is 5.42. As you can see, the movies have are far beyond what the inflation rate should have been. All right, Coca-Cola was let me see here, 5 cents in 1956. To adjust it to 2025 inflation is 60 cents. Oh, I mean, it's like $2 now to buy a Coke, maybe $2.50 if you go to a restaurant. But you know what I used to love about Coca-Cola bottles? If you remember, they used to come in glass. And as kids, you would collect those and you'd get money. I mean, it would be like pennies or whatever for each bottle that you returned. Okay, which we thought it was great because we get enough money, then we can go to the show and stuff like that. Because, you know, remember, they said movie tickets were 45 cents. And they're right, unless you went to a matinee into a show that were showing older movies, you get in for 5-10 cents. Now, when you're a kid, that's great. When you work retail, that's bad because you got to make sure you'd rinsed out the Coke bottles. If you didn't, you'd have ants everywhere. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And how about this? How about a gallon of gas? 27 cents a gallon. Okay? Adjusted for 2025 inflation, that would be equivalent to $3.25 a gallon. Now I hear, according to AAA, that there are some states that are well under $2 a gallon. Okay, we here in California, we would kill for $3.25. we're still in the $4. Yeah, and it's something I think like the Oklahoma was like $2.69 or something like that. Oh man, we would kill for $3.25. But no. Oh, and how about school lunches? Now, some places like I believe LA Unified, they get free. Okay, but back in 1956, it was 25 cents. 25 cents. Adjusted for inflation, it would be $3.01. Okay, adjusted for inflation for 25. If you remember those school lunches, that's where I was introduced to chimichangas. Okay, the burritos that are fried. All right. Oh, I loved them. They were great. You know, so yeah. So about 301, but a lot of school districts now are giving out free lunches. So, you know, I don't know why, but you know, we always used to brown bag it because even 25 cents was a little high for some of our parents. All right. How about this one? How about a loaf of bread was 15 cents? If you adjust that for inflation, it would be about $1.81. My goodness, I've seen bread as high as $8 a loaf. I'm going like, what is it? Is it lined with gold or what's the story here? You know, but don't forget, this is Wonder Bread, all right? And Wonder Bread has always been the cheapest bread, and I think now it's still like $4.99 or something to that effect, $3.99, $4.99. And you know they're making good money because in the 60s, all right, they were sponsoring NASCAR. They would have Wonder Bread on the cars. So you know they were making good money. But yeah, for adjusted for inflation, about $1.81. And you know what? It's way over that now. All right. How about this one? Toothpaste was 50 cents. Okay? 50 cents. If you adjust it for inflation for 2025, $6.02. What? Yeah. And that's about right. I mean, that's what it costs now these days. And on a bus ticket. And believe you me, I went on plenty of bus rides with my mom. Oh, man, that's it. She didn't drive. All right. And remember, back in those days, there was only one car per the family. That's it. That's the reason why everything was so cheap. One car, one TV, one phone. That's it. Forget all of these phones, forget computers, forget that. One of everything. All right. Now get this. Bus tickets was anywhere from 10 to 15 cents. Adjusted for inflation, that would be $1.20 to $1.81. Of course, unless you're in New York, I hear the buses are going to be free now. So that's even so you'll beat prices from 1956 if that is the case. How about this? How about a bar of soap? Okay, 10 to 15 cents. Who uses a bar of soap anymore? All right. I mean, even the hotels don't even have them anymore. All right. They have like the body wash. But yeah, a bar of soap was 10 to 15 cents. Okay. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1.20, $1.81. All right. Everybody's using body wash, and some of that stuff can get pretty expensive when you really look at it. It gets way up there. All right. And how about coffee? All right. Now this is it. In 1956, coffee went anywhere from 5 cents to 10 cents. Adjusted for inflation is 60 and $1.20. I would kill for coffee to be $1.20. There is no place on planet Earth, or at least in the United States, where you can get a cup of coffee for $1.20. Okay? There is no place. I mean, think about this. Starbucks for just a regular cup of coffee. I mean, you're in the $3-4 territory. Okay? I myself love the caramel macchiato. But I make my own in the morning, because there's no way I'm paying $6 for a cup of coffee. There's no way. I'll make it at my house. Yeah, and I add my own stuff. That's the way to do it. I perk my coffee. I don't have one of those fancy machines or whatever. No way. Okay, that's the way to do it. All right, make it yourself. You'll save a ton of money. The reason why I did this is one time is back in I think it was 2004. I added up what I was selling, what I was spending on coffee, and it was a car payment. I'm going like, this is it. I've stopped it. All right. As a matter of fact, I stopped it and I bought a little Jeep. It was an opening price point Jeep, the little Liberties. It's like $14,000 or whatever. Put a good down payment on it. And the payments, and I looked it up, and I'm going like, I'm paying this much every single day. So that's almost $200 a month. I said, forget it. I'm not doing it. All right. And that $200 paid for my Jeep. Yeah. And stamps were 3 cents or 36 cents, for adjusted for inflation. But yeah, that wasn't too bad. Now, this is going to be the last one. Okay. Does anybody outside of California remember know of In-N-Out Burger? Okay. Now, let me tell you, this is so popular that when I worked in Anaheim for the lumber company, we would have CEOs, vice presidents come out, and you know where they wanted to go to lunch? In-N-Out Burger. Okay, it's just a small little burger stand, and In-N-Out, everybody knows what they are. Okay, best fries, drink, they're very, very reasonable. But back in 1956, because they've been around since the 40s, one of the very few establishments that's actually older than I am. Okay, and still family owned. And this is what's a killer. Okay, they are a Southern California based company. All right, they have been there from the start, and they moved to Tennessee. The corporate office moved to Tennessee, and they'll be opening up In-N-Outs in Tennessee. Now, you can't tell me that they did that for financial reasons. Okay, they went out there because it was just too much. It cost too much to have a business in California. I remember I used to work for a company that had been around, lumber company, had been around since 1886. I think 1886, 1884. All right. And the way we viewed the restrictions in California is we kind of welcomed them, because we figured that was competition deterrent. Because you know what? We've been here since the 1800s, we're here to stay. Anybody in their right mind would not open up a lumberyard in California. Okay, so we looked at it. Hey, it's it's a competition deterrent. So that's what we always looked at it that way. Oh, by the way, let's get back to that. 55 cents. 55 cents for a complete meal. That's a hamburger, fries, and a drink. If you adjust it for inflation, it's $6.62, which is pretty close, because I think that their number 3, which is just a hamburger, not a cheeseburger, but just a hamburger, I think it's like $6.99. So it's pretty close to that. So they're pretty much standard in the inflation rate. But let's all remember, times were different back then. Not, we didn't have all the gadgets that we have today. I mean, let's be honest, the refrigerators, okay? They got computers on the refrigerator. I mean, my stove is hooked up to my phone. All right, so it's unbelievable. There's so much stuff that has been added compared to back then. I mean, there was hardly anything back then. And again, one car, one TV, one phone. And the phone had a wire. Okay, you couldn't take it with you. You wanted privacy, you had to make sure you had a long line so you can carry that phone all the way into a different room. But it might have been a little simple, but you know what? We all grew up, we appreciated it, and you know what? We will never, ever have another time like this as far as the technology goes, because you know what? It's only going to get better, okay? Technology will just make our life so much easier. Of course, there's, shall we say, negative impact with it, but, okay, we still, I would rather have the technology than not, okay? So, again, we don't, these prices are not what you think they would be because of the fact that because we have to cover for inflation, but they weren't bad, okay? Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for listening, and may God bless. We'd like to thank you for listening and remind you, if you happen to have any baby boomer topics you'd like us to cover, just email us at growingupboomer@gmail.com. And until next time, may God bless.